Lovely.
So Mark is also cheekily going to shoehorn in 2 albums. That's a bit of a...
Which is major.
So I just hit the red. No,
Mark,
yeah,
do you want to do your talk first and the track, or track first?
Track first.
Yeah, sure.
And actually, hearing these guys, it kind of follows on a little bit in terms of style.
Very funky guys, these guys, okay.
Sorry, kids. I wrote a whole thing without any swear words.
Don't worry.
Okay, so it's 1995 and I've not long turned 18. I'm working at the Butlins camp down the road at Bognor Regis, and a couple of people that I'm working with are like, we're going to see my friend in Portsmouth, he's got a tattoo place and we're all getting inked up. Want to join? To be honest, I really didn't. I've never had a massive urge to get tattooed and haven't really since. But I was new, naive, and wanted to impress, so I went along. Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm here to tell you today how much I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But first I want to say how much of a pleasure it is to speak at one of the best libraries in the country.
Here, 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 here.
I haven't done a talk like this in about 10 years. I used to do it a lot. Normally I talk about pranking neo-Nazis in Essex or blagging my way into the apartment Hitler kept his niece as a sex slave. So this is a relative distraction. My stuff is normally filled with sex, violence and cursing. So this has been a challenge. I've been a fan of this band since 1998 when my late father, a fan of George Clinton, gave me a copy of an album he produced called Freaky Styley. I wasn't massively fussed about it, but in my defense I was 10 years old. To be fair, all I cared about was He-Man and the Transformers. This relationship has outlasted any friendship I've ever had, which is both a little sad and quite awesome at the same time. But then that's the sort of bond that true music fans have with an artist, especially when they discover them at a time before they hit the big time. I'm going to tell you about what I think is their best album, but I want to first point you towards their Live in Hyde Park album, which you've just heard a little bit of. Why this album? Well, it's because I was there. It was the day I finally got to see my favourite band after 16 years. A day that was only mildly ruined when I received a text message from the girl I was seeing at the time, who dumped me because I wasn't kinky enough for her. True story. But hey, I was there with my best friend from childhood and I got to see James Brown perform. So swings and roundabouts. At the time in 2004, the Red Hot Chili Peppers set a record for the highest grossing concerts at a single venue in history. Despite the band only playing songs from free of their many albums, this album is a must for Chili Peppers fans because there are a number of original songs on here that are not available on any other studio albums, just on this release. Something you don't see that often. This classical and seminal lineup, including John Frusciante, tore into central London's largest park. The effortless, blistering energy of their live shows is perfectly encapsulated here. The caustic guitar solos, the frenetic and funky bass licks, the sublime and soulful melodies bleed through this double CD. The quirky and surprising cover versions both please and baffle the listener. I mean, who else could get away with being the current biggest band on the planet and playing obscure punk rock songs and I Feel Love by Donna Summer? It really is a testament to the live album format, which often disappoints and makes the bands shout and shout. I thought I would never get to see my favourite band again, and I wasn't sure whether anything else could top that day, but rather randomly I ended up seeing them in New York a year later, and they were even better. They were recording in the city and weren't stifled by a touring schedule. They were looser than ever and closed out the show in a park called Randall's Island that took an age to get to, with a 20-minute version of Give It Away featuring Bootsy Collins and Snoop Dogg doing an improvised rap. It was a bit odd. My favourite Red Hot Chili Peppers album, though, is one called Mother's Milk. It's the one before their breakout album, Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic, and is the introduction to the world of the aforementioned lineup. John wasn't the original guitarist or or the current, but his body of work with the band remains timeless and forever unmatched. This album also featured the debut of the longtime drummer, who is still in existence, Chad Smith. It's probably most well known for their covers of Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground and Fire by Jimi Hendrix. Think about that for a minute. Jimmy and Stevie Wonder. It's both madness and inspired and truly encapsulates the range and inspirational ethos the band has. But Mother's Milk also features a complete array of punk, funk classics that all of their fans absolutely adore, cherish, and wish they would play live still. And not just songs from their most popular albums. My personal favourites being Subway to Venus, Knock Me Down, and Nobody Weird Like Me. I'm very much looking forward to bassist Flea's memoir, due out in a couple of weeks. It's called Acid for the Elephants, and I'm sure Brighton Library will have multiple copies of it now. And it will be the first chance we get to hear from any of the bands since Anthony's brilliant book, Scar Tissue, back when I was in Hyde Park watching them. I urge you to read it. It's worth it just for the story about having Cher as a babysitter. The music of the Red Hot Chili Peppers is clever, sexy, and just a little bit mental. You should all give them a chance. Back in Portsmouth, you remember we had that? Back in Portsmouth, and I don't know what I'm doing. My friends are asking what I want to get tattooed. I have no idea. So I say the hell with it. I want a Red Hot Chili Peppers star. They're all like, what? It's a symbol they have on all their albums, and all the bands have one on their wrist. I want one on my wrist like the band, I announce. The guy who has the shop is like, that's an intense place to get a first tattoo. I'm like, don't worry, I'm tougher than I look. He's like, no, seriously, you can't take that. I look around and everyone else is in agreement. I'm like, do it wherever then. So he suggests the top of my arm. He gets halfway around the outline and I faint. they rouse me, and he's like, "Told you." I grin and bear through the rest of it. On reflection, getting dumped hurt a lot more.
Mm.